Sabres Live is presented by Seneca Resorts and Casinos. Nothing else comes close.
We are going to overtime!
Perfect road trip so far. Marty Biron for the Buffalo Sabres, 4-2, 6-3, 5-1 before heading into Seattle. How serious are you about this Sabres Live Overtime?
I'm really serious about this podcast, but when you're serious about the game, bet on Buffalo at the only sports book in Western New York. Seneca Resorts and Casinos betting counters are open daily, and self-service betting kiosks are available 24/7 at all 3 locations. Whether you visit Seneca, Niagara, Allegheny, or Buffalo Creek, the Sports Lounge features the latest line and multiple screens so you never miss a play. The sportsbook at Seneca Resorts and Casinos, where the love of the game meets the thrill of the win. Duffer, how about that for a tap in?
That is a thrill of the win 3 times over, at least on this trip, and maybe the best assist I've ever provided. A little handoff there for you to, capitalize. Look, Marty, you're one of 59 goaltenders to play for the Sabres in team history. You're 4th on the all-time wins list, well ahead of Craig Anderson and Eric Comrie. But both of those two are nicely climbing right now based on the terrific start to the season for both.
Terrific. It started in the first game of the season, right, where Craig Anderson faced the Ottawa Senators and had multiple breakaways, and Comrie played lights out against Florida. Third star of the game and a losing cause. But I think what we've seen now is how comfortable this team is with their goaltending. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, they're stealing games. Okay, they're stealing games, but you should. That's your job. You're a goaltender. I mean, I would love to get 55 shots a game and win the game 4-2 every night. Like, I'd probably still be playing, Duffer, if that was the case, right? So, and listen, I know, goals save above expectation is a stats that I focus on a lot when it comes to goaltenders. Mm-hmm. And right now, when you look at Eric Comrie and Craig Anderson, they are top 5 per game in goal save versus expectation. Craig Anderson is 2nd in the NHL, according to Sports Logic. Eric Comrie is 5th. So they're both top 5. Well, why does it have to change? Why do you have to think of it as a negative? Like, I love it. I think it's great that the Sabres are finally looking at having good goaltending, but also are embracing it and playing the game the way it should be played. I love it. Listen, I absolutely love it.
They're obviously, again, it's super small sample size, so yes, we can only report on what we have. I guess if you were to say a bigger sample size is the fact that, not unlike last year, they are allowing a lot more shots per game than what they're actually getting. So when you say they're playing the right way, I think we would all agree to a certain extent, but they need to do more to start getting it closer to even, quite frankly, right? Like, can they keep living on the 38-29 margin?
Okay, so how about this one? Goals, expected goals per game, right? That's another big stat. You say, according to the scoring chances and the value of all the shots that are taken in the game, what is your expectation of how many goals should you have scored and how many goals should you have given up? This is a tough 5-game stretch that the Sabres played. Ottawa's a good team. They can score and they're good. Florida is a great team. Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver is struggling, but 4 out of the 5 teams going into it, I would have said, well, they're probably better than the Sabres. But only in 2 games were the Sabres below the other team in expectation at the end of the night. Only against Florida and the Oilers were the Sabres on the losing end of the expected goals at the end of the night when you look at it. So it's not like they were on the losing end all 5 games and the goalies saved them. They actually, if you just look at expected goals, should be 3-2. So it's not like they've got blown out, right? They're 4-1. Yes, they saved the one against the Oilers. Eric Comrie in the 3rd period gave them the win. But that's 1 out of 5 game that went the way the Sabres, not the other way. So I'm okay with that. If they go in the first 50 games and 30 of the 50 games, they are ahead in the expected goals at the end of the game, I'm good.
Absolutely. Now, they're averaging 4.4 per game. They're giving up 2.2. Both will move, presumably, as the season goes along. What might be the most intriguing statistic for you team wide right now?
Oh, team wide. I like that against the Vancouver Canucks, and I'm only going to say that was maybe not against every other team, but against the Canucks, they were 8-1 in third period high danger chances. 8-1. Look, the Canucks made a push, and the Sabres were able to push right back in the third and say, we're going to take it to them. 8-1 high danger chances in the third period. That's not something that we saw against the Oilers, maybe not even against the Calgary Flames, but they adjusted. So to me, that stats is good. And quickly, Duffer, just so that people understand that good goaltending also usually relates to teams that are winning and teams that are doing good. Last year in the NHL, 7 of the top 11 teams, when you consider the goals versus expectations, made the playoffs. The top team was the New York Rangers. They went to the conference final. The fourth team was Carolina, and they went to the second round, but didn't have Freddie Anderson to play, and he was a big part of that. Pittsburgh was fifth. They didn't have their goalies in the first round. They went with Louis Domingue, right? Nashville was seventh. They lost to Colorado. Goalie. They didn't have their goalies either. Calgary went to the second round. They were ninth. St. Louis lost Bennington. They were 10th. Tampa Bay was 11th. They went to the Stanley Cup Finals. Like, that's normal. That's normal that teams should consider their goaltenders maybe their biggest asset to get success. So that, and last year on the other side, Toronto, Florida, Washington were 29th, 22nd, and 21st. And obviously we know Toronto got out in the first round. Florida lost to Tampa, and Washington out in the first round. So not getting good goaltending, even if you make the playoffs, will only cost you in the later run.
And I can hear the naysayers suggesting with the Vancouver game that you just referenced, the fact that they dominated in that third period push area. Well, obviously, because Vancouver's getting crushed in third periods. Well, that's exactly the point.
Yeah.
If you know they've been getting crushed, keep crushing. Don't become the victim here. Don't become the outlier. Don't give them their first win. You know that was my biggest concern going into the night was how do you avoid being their number one, their first win of the year, their reclamation moment, right?
You had such a hard time trying to come up with the right language to not make it a negative, but that's important as a team to say, hey, let's embrace this. We're not going to be their first victim. And especially if we're up after 2, we are not going to let them up. Jim Schoenfeld used to have such great one-liners, right? I don't know about as a player, but he was the assistant coach of the Rangers. And he came up in the second intermission one year, and we were up by a goal or 2. And he says, guys, you got the snake down. Now you got to step on its neck. You got to step on the skate's neck, because if you don't, if you step on the tail or on the end, it's going to come up your pant leg, go up your ass, and boom, it's going to be like, and we were laughing. Like, we were like, what is he talking about? But that's the point of the whole thing. Like, they were able to step on the neck, on the snake's neck in Vancouver. And that's something that was important.
Yeah. And again, how they did it, quick goal, negated because it didn't go in, and then immediately following that up and then finishing ridiculously strong when clearly a white flag was being waved by Vancouver at that point. They just looked awful to finish that game. And again, full marks. You pad your stats and you move on. And now it's Seattle, a team that just endured a rather difficult afternoon Sunday in Chicago when they allowed 2 and 13 seconds to go from advantage Kraken to another loss, which is now 2-3-2 for them on the season heading into the game on Tuesday night. So we'll focus more on Seattle, obviously, in the time ahead leading to puck drop, which is our last Sabres After Dark for a while on Tuesday night. But, within all of this, the easy starting point right now would be revisiting some of the magical numbers posted by Rasmus Dahlin and Alex Tuch, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to pause on that and make sure that Enrique gets as much love as humanly possible here on Sabres Live Overtime.
Ecuadorian Enrique Inestrosa, not Italian Vinny Inestrosa. So very interesting. And if you were watching the pregame on Saturday night, you learned something new about Vinny Inestrosa, that Enrique is his middle name. That's his dad's legal full name. I don't know what they call his dad, if he has a surname or something, but that he is technically, his family is from Ecuador. So that was really, really cool to find out. And in the 3 games that Vinny Inestrosa has played on a line with Dylan Cozens and JJ Peterka, they are the most consistent and all-around good line with the Sabres. You are using three players that maybe last summer you wouldn't think like, oh, those three are going to mesh, but they are fitting in really well. I wrote down a bunch of things about certain players on the piece of paper that I have in front of me right now. And really, the one thing I wrote about Dylan Cozens, and he's becoming, and we kind of hoped for that this summer, but we didn't know if it was going to come through. And we even talked about maybe Dylan Cozens should play the wing. Well, that is, for me, that's being squashed right now because Dylan Cozens is becoming this great all-around player, able to provide offense, able to play a heavy game in the offensive zone, and also be this force defensively, relied upon on face-offs by Don Granato. So I really think that with Hinostroza and Peterka, this could be a matchup asset for the Sabres, especially on the road, to say, you know what? Like, we're going to pair you against top lines, and maybe we don't have to go Thompson against top lines. We can use Dylan Cozens, Hinostroza, and Peterka as that shutdown group that can also provide offense.
High danger chances for differential, meaning the difference between the ones you're getting and the ones you allow. Peterka is +9 in that regard. Cozens is +8. Hinostroza is +6. They are by far the best trio that plays together on a regular basis. Vinny is 61.9% and the expected goals for percentage. Yeah. The best on the team. And obviously, Peterka, Cozens, and unsurprisingly, Rasmus Dahlin in that mix as well.
And Vinny played the 3 games, and 2 of the 3 games were heavily shot attempted by the other team, which would mean that the numbers should be really negative in his case, or in Dylan Cozens and Peterka's case. No, they were able to really flip the numbers, even though they were shot attempted in Edmonton and Calgary.
I think it's super impressive. I know for some they just sound like numbers, but and maybe confusing ones at that. But all we're trying to do is simplify what you probably feel like you're seeing out there. And that is, wow, that's another good shift for this line. It's another good shift. But more importantly, maybe because you and I see it from the crease out an awful lot, most importantly, it's not a bad shift. You know, you're not constantly being hemmed in. So that leads me to clean sheets. Guys with a 0 right now in the goals against column at 5-on-5.
Okay.
Rasmus Asplund has been on for 6, 0 against. Henry Jokiharju on for 4, 0 against. Olofsson 2 and 0. Quinn 2 and 0. Opozo and Girgensons 1 and 0. Considering a lot of those guys have seen a lot of ice time, I know it's only 5 games. It's still impressive to have a clean sheet.
It's really impressive. I think Asplund has played himself into a very significant role. Again, he started on a line with Girgensons and Oposo and was elevated to a different role when Quinn was taken out of the lineup, and then Hinostroza was added in. Like, lines were shift around a little, but Tuch went up to play with Thompson and Skinner, and there was some changes. But what we saw is Asplund's able to fit in many, many different ways, and his play is still the same. I have loved that. You mentioned Jokiharju. Look, before the injury, he and Power was dealing with some highs and lows, but Henry was a steady presence. I felt for Owen Power, and hopefully will return in a shorter time frame. That was pretty scary. We obviously saw Matthias Samuelsson go down too, so we hope that he returns in a shorter time frame as well. But you talk about all these numbers. Zemgus Girgensons, for me, even though it's a lower number, right? It's 2 and 0, I think you said.
1 and 0.
1 and 0.
Yep.
Even though it's a lower number, like I wrote down, Zemgus, his willingness to sacrifice himself again. Like, this is just a leader, and one that 2 years ago, when Kevin Adams extended Zemgus Girgensson to a contract, people were like, oh my goodness, they're bringing the same people. And I was even in that category of questioning why bringing back Zemgus on a, I think it was a 3-year deal. And I'm thinking, like,
at a dollar figure that was, well, obviously it doesn't matter in Buffalo's cap situation. Yeah. It was higher than what people would have perceived market value necessarily would have been.
And I was one of those that were like, I don't like it. Like, we're rolling it back with Zemgus Girgensons, and it was
Yeah, and through no fault of his own, right? Like it was more just like you're looking at it from like.
Well, it was like Drake Kajula, and it was like everybody together. And I was thinking, like, it's just the same group again. Like, when are we going to move forward? But again, this team wasn't ready to move forward with new players. Now they made the Eichel trade, and obviously that brought Tuch in, Krebs and Quinn and Peterka. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, now you can see what Zemgus' spot on this team is. You can see what Calaposo's spot on this team is. But Zemgus' willingness to sacrifice and has rewarded him with a couple of goals already this year.
Okay, so a week ago at this time, it was the pissed off edition of Sabres Live Overtime, and many are now wondering how significant was that game against the Panthers, the loss, but more importantly, what was being said after and whether that had anything to do with their approach moving forward. Because Don Granato was very, I don't want to say defensive, but he was very aggressive to a certain extent in his post-game answers when he thought a question or two were leading down a path that he was like, no, it wasn't that. It was this, and it was this and this. And it also mirrored what was being said in the room. So how, if at all, was that loss some sort of little early season unifying presence here for the group?
Well, it is, and I'm going to say it in two ways. It is because as a coach, you have to use that emotion and guide it in the right way. So I think the Sabres were pissed off and upset because Matthew Tkachuk was running around and went lower bridge on Jokiharju. There was other incidents on the ice where there was some cheap shot happening. And they were a goal away from saying, we beat the Panthers. And Don Granato says, I can't wait to play them again. Which is the part that's the right approach to use, like your emotions and put them in the right way. Now, the way that I feel like it didn't affect them too much is because I take myself into my player's mind when I played. The game's over. It's over. You're done. Like, you move on to the next one. You're not playing the Florida Panthers again for a while. You're moving on to the road trip. You got the Edmonton Oilers. You forget about it. I don't think the players took the ice in Edmonton on Tuesday night and thought, we're still mad about Matthew Tkachuk and the Florida Panthers and what happened. No, it was gone. But we, as analysts and fans of the Sabres and fans of the game, it stays with us a lot longer than it stays with the players. It doesn't stay in the locker room until you really learn from it. And I think the players really learned from it. One guy in particular, and I know you mentioned Dahlin and the numbers and 5 straight games with a goal. For me, the biggest thing about Dahlin, and he is becoming a beep hole, and I've already said the words, he's becoming an hole to play against. Like, he is. And that's what I like about him. Like, he's taken a penalty on a trip that he didn't like it, and he comes right back on Podkolzin and he gives him a shot, right? He's becoming that pass to play against with the high talent level. Like, that's the pissed off edition of Rasmus Dahlin that I love right now.
Anything else you would like to say about Dahlin and or Tuch, or are we just going to save that for Tuesday night?
Tuch's a beast. Tuch is a beast. Like, I feel that when he wants to, and he's shown it now in 5 games this year, he can't be touched, right? Like, he has the puck, he's strong on it, he's in front of the net, nobody can cover him, nobody can move him out of the way, he's got speed through the neutral zone, nobody can skate with him and be strong with him like he is. There was a player I played with, and I know people are going to say, oh my gosh, can't say this name. I'm going to say this guy's name, but I think Tuch is like 10 times what this player was. It was Chris Gratton. When Chris Gratton was here, Lindy Ruff used to say to Gratz, you could be a point a game guy. You're so strong. Nobody can, you can skate. You're big. You have a great shot. Why don't you feel confident in yourself to be able to do it? Right. And Gratz was always like, is my shot that good? Like, am I strong? Like, would be like, dude, you're a beast. But he had zero confidence and was never able to get to that point. I see the confidence in Tuch now. That is like, he's that same guy, big, strong, fast, good shot, but now with confidence. So I say he's a beast.
More numbers on Dahlin and Tuch to come. That'll be on our Tuesday pregame for sure. Both have absolutely ridiculous shooting percentages right now, but there are some who don't have any endearing numbers at this point in time. How comforting is it for those players right now, given that the team is 4-1?
Well, it is comforting because you can handle the tough going personally a lot better when your team is winning. Jeff Skinner is one of those that is struggling to find a rhythm right now. He did hit a post. I think it was against the Oilers, maybe he hit a post, or maybe it was the Flames. Anyway,
probably the Flames, because they had like 4 in the one period.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
They did. It was a post against the Flame. They had 3 crossbars, I believe, in that game. One was Tage Thompson that did not count, that they turned the light on. But Skinner is looking to find himself. But I feel like Thompson is right there and Tuch is a beast. So it's helping Skinner get back to where it needs to be. I was happy to see Victor Olofsson get 2 goals late in the game against the Vancouver Canucks. He hadn't really shown anything, but Victor is who he is. He's a goal scorer. I get mad when I say, oh, win a battle on the wall. Oh, but in the end of the day, again, I'm going to compare Victor. I almost think like he's Miro Shatan in a way, where Miro would come off the ice after a game, would not have a bead of sweat on his head, and would have had 2 goals. Yeah, maybe it's in the 6-1 win where he had the 5th and 6th goal, but Miro had the talent. You gave him one chance. It was in the back of the net. Didn't win all the battles on the wall. Sometimes didn't really block shots, or defensively was not really, his forte, but he was who he was, and you needed to appreciate him for that. I think Victor is kind of like that right now. I think there's still more that Victor needs to give, but he is who he is. He's got 4 goals, 2 empty netters, and 2 late in the Vancouver game. Yeah. So it is what it is, but he still can score.
Got 4 goals in 5 games.
Got 4 goals.
It's pretty darn good. How ridiculously good is the East compared to the West? It's, oh my gosh.
Even teams that are at the bottom of the East right now, they're 6 points away from the top teams, right? It's 3 games. It's really 3 games away. So Montreal, that we thought, Montreal's going to struggle, but they're not struggling. Pittsburgh is pushing
with the wee stuff. I never said they were going to struggle. You know that.
I know. No.
So
okay. I thought Montreal was going to struggle, and they could very well struggle at some point this year. Who knows? Yes. But the East is where last year 8 teams, 100 points made the playoffs, and the rest of the conference was like, bleh. Now you've got everybody scrunched together and playing competitively. Columbus could be in a much better place if they hung on to some lead or whatnot, or had good goaltending. Their goaltenders at the very bottom. So there's a big difference right there.
Ooh, where's Leakins?
Yeah, struggling.
Really struggling, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I know it's tough. It's tough to watch when I'm sure you feel it. Certain guys, you look at their game and you just go, you hope it bounces back for them.
You just hope that it bounces back, but at the same time, this is a couple of years that we're seeing it on Merzlikins, and he needs to be able to take the bull by the horn.
Yeah. So you have 3 stars since
I have 3 stars because we're going to talk because we talk goaltenders. I'm going to tell you 3 goaltenders that have impressed me at the start of the season. So in their records and their goal save above expectation and all of that. So 3rd star is Jordan Binnington. Look, he was taking a backseat to Ville Husso last year. Came through late in the season, got hurt, Nazem Kadri in the playoffs, but his start to this season with St. Louis, wow, fantastic. 2nd star, Carter Hart. Now I know this is John Tortorella defensive system, but Carter Hart made a change in his equipment this summer, trained differently, has come and has played really, really well for the Flyers to start the season. And my number 1 star, well, he's following up with his performance in the playoffs last year, losing to the Calgary Flames, but was unreal, is Jake Ottinger. I think at this time, Jake Ottinger is probably the best goaltender in the NHL after the first couple of weeks of the season.
All right. Can I spontaneously quiz you on the high-end goalies you are most concerned about right now?
Ooh, high-end goalie. I am most UC Saros. I'm a little concerned with UC Saros. So yeah, he was 6th last year in goal save above expectations. And this year is low on the totem pole.
Yeah, it's been really, really hard to watch. But honestly, Marty, and again, this I don't want to say it happens every year, but when you have the kind of summer that it was for unrestricted, goalies, guys that didn't have Vezina type resumes get elevated, and with that elevation comes even more pressure. And I think there's a lot of guys that are having a tough time right now finding that, what they were really hoping would be a terrific rhythm right out of the blocks. And again,
Jacob Markstrom luckily won against Carolina, but they were down 2-0 on Saturday night.
Georgiev in Colorado, or Campbell in Edmonton, guys like that. Even Kemper. I mean, he's got the cup ring, so he deserves all the accolades. But it's not been a smooth transition, right? So
Marc-Andre Fleury in Minnesota. That is a tough transition too.
Oh no, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay, I got a upgrade message from Zoom on the screen there. So
well, maybe we got to turn. Maybe we got to end this because we're going to be cut off so soon.
Have a little panic Perot moment. All right, we will indeed be looking forward to how this trip ends, but we'll leave it on the last note, which is unknown at this time, other than the fact that Jokiharju's home in Buffalo. Samuelsson obviously is out now as well. Lawrence Pilot very likely comes into the lineup. You've got Clegg up from Rochester. How do you think this group can navigate in the short term on the blue line?
I think they can navigate. Dahlin and Power will take a bigger role. Lyubushkin's played really good, so I think they can handle that and maybe give a little bit less ice time to Pilot, and Fitzgerald's played well. Bryson's looked good, so they can navigate. And Seattle's got some good offense. They got trouble in the net. So that's one game. And then let's see when you come back home how things shape up. So one game. That's all you have to navigate right now.
When they get home, it'll be Montreal, Chicago, and Detroit, a trio of games at KeyBank Center. Thanks for being with us on Sabres Live Overtime. We'll see you on WGR Sports Radio 550 and MSG on Tuesday.